have a third eye open. I say that because a light is coming through, hitting me in kind of have you ever heard this, the third eye? Not related to what I'm going to go over today, but this is the last attendance post, the end of this class. It has been a quick 9 weeks. I know from talking to all of you at this point that some of you have thrived in this environment, some of you have struggled, and some of you are not here, meaning you're probably not going to see this because you got behind. Now, that is somewhat, I don't want to say expected, it just is based on any kind of first when students take a programming class. It is definitely challenging your first language and then how the class is approached. And in my case, when I require students to write code, I know that it is more challenging, but I feel like that's part of what we're here to collectively learn. And again, I do the work as well because I get better the more I code. So I guess the beginning of what I'm saying is thank you. Thank you for those that have hung to the end. Thank you for those that have given me feedback. I actually am ahead of the schedule, so I haven't seen any week 8 feedback yet, but thank you for that. And so I have a list of things I need to go over in this last video. So I actually took notes on my attendance post to make sure I covered them. So let's go take a look. So the first thing is just covering the work that you have this week. In the video 24, oh yeah, day 24. She does a fairly good introduction to files and folders. Honestly, I wish she'd went a little further because she has you code for your OS specific, but that's okay because at least you're getting a good introduction to understanding how to handle files and folders. But the thing I want to tell you, and I'll move over to VS Code. Do I need to? But just to give you the idea. So the way I set my VS Code is I open that base directory I had you all create at the beginning of the semester. So that is your root folder for wherever you are set up. And when you're doing day 24, I definitely recommend setting up. Now, I do have you build a folder, two of them in that case. But I would definitely, I think I in this case, when I did the last one, what I did is I opened this folder directly, and then it was easier to write the code for that. And you may find that in doing this work, that may be true for you as well. So if you're having a hard time following along and getting it to run, just know that you can open this folder in VS Code, and whatever folder is open is your root folder. And from that location is where you can start writing your code. Okay. So I just ran into that. I did say that in the write up, but I just wanted to say that as well. Okay. So now, and you have 2 days this week. I think both are really good. But the other thing I want to say is the great what if. The great what if is really about, and let me just show you what I mean. Like I can change to the student. Matter of fact, let me do it on another tab so I don't mess up those two so I can go back. So in the course, I can actually change my view, and hopefully you all know this, but I want to make sure you do because in here, when you click on so this is the view that you have. And the thing you can do is answer the what if. Now, these are just scores for the test student that I play with. This is nobody's score, but any score in here. So at this point, right, we're in week 9. And so there's only a couple items, 23, 24, and of course the last dev. Now, hopefully you know that the devs account, all 3 of them account for 50%. So they have a bigger weight on your grade than the Udemy and the Learn Together. Those are split as well. Matter of fact, if you scroll up, hopefully you know this, how those percentages are broken down. So the Learn Togethers are 15 and the Code Alongs are 30. Code Alongs are the Udemy courses. So the great what if, coming back to my topic, is what do I need to get on the last dev? Because And here's the reality. There's the course that you're taking to build the skill that you want, and then there's the grade that you want from the course. And often the two have the same trajectory, but they may not. So you may be asking, based on your particular timeline and your particular challenges, what grade do I need to get on the last dev or any other late work, which let me talk about once I'm done with this topic. And what you can do here is once I put in a grade, right? You can come in here, and actually it's here. This is because these are the score, and the other one is the out of. So in here, you can put in what you think you're going to get for that work. Now, that work may be the dev, right? The last dev here, right? So, what do I need to get on the last dev to receive the grade that I want in this class? So, that is definitely something you can fill out. Any work that you think you're going to complete before next Friday. Now, when I say next Friday, we'll look at the calendar in a minute, but so it gives you an idea, right? So you can helps you organize based, and that's the other thing is based on the fact that you've maybe done really well on both the devs. This one you could just, figure out how to get whatever you need to get the grade you want to get. Now, that's not what I recommend, but I want you to know as a student that you can determine that, and I hope that you already knew that. Okay, so you can do that, the great what if for anything in this class. And the thing I would tell you, moving over to the calendar, right? Our Dev 2 is due on December 9th. I'll talk about the schedule for signups in a minute, but I want you to know that any late work also has to be submitted by really by the time I wake up Friday morning. So I like to just give you a deadline of the 9th at midnight. But I will grade anything that I see as of that morning. And Friday is a really busy day for me. And depending on when you do your code review, which I really hope to see you sooner, you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. But I want you to know that's the last time I will take late work. You have to turn in your dev by then. Try to do it before. That way you're in a good position to finish. Okay, so last date to turn in late work, your dev, and that will be good to go. Okay, so let's talk about the signups now. So I have created a sheet which this video and the same message is going to be sent out to students via email because I was going to post it on Discord. I think I will afterwards, but I wanted everyone to have access to the information at the same time. Mostly because of this. I don't know who will take advantage of it. But what I've done to encourage you, right? So the setup of this is really no different than what we've seen before. What is different is when you do your review. Now, in this case, if you come in for assistance, this doesn't apply, okay? This applies if you actually submit your final working code and I grade it by this date, right? So you come into these sessions to get it done, or by this Monday, or so for Monday, whatever you get on Dev 2, I will add 20 points. On Tuesday, I'll add 15. On Wednesday, I'll add 10, and on Thursday, I'll add 5. Okay, as my way to give you encouragement for this getting it done early. And then you can see I only have 4 sessions, which should be more than enough based on the active number of students at this point. Because I know already I've talked to 3 students who are going to be doing before the Friday. At least we're hoping they do. So it is a fairly tight schedule, as I've been saying. So it is here. I do not have appointments in Friday afternoon. I actually just found out I have a meeting I have to be in on Friday afternoon. So I can't do before and I can't do after. So Friday is a really tight day. So waiting until then, these are the ones that I have available, 11 to 1 o'clock. Okay, but no extra points for those. Okay, that's the schedule. Coming back here, do make sure, I just say this, do make sure that when you're setting up, right, your dev, and I'll just roll back here just to show you mine, roll up my make sure it's under the dev directory and it's under dev_2 and all the files and folders therein. Okay. That's part of what I asked for when you submit this work. Do make sure it's PEP 8. I believe, and let me just go check real quick. I do believe I added only one minor thing to the requirements. Oh, I have to leave the student view for a minute. Sorry about that. So here on the end, I think I did put in the PEP 8. Yep, there we go. Right? Need to implement at least 2 classes, but don't let this be your determinant. Okay, I did talk about my progress for Dev 2 in week 8. I'm going to give you one last update today because I'm pretty much there, right? Place all class code into a separate file. Have at least part of the turtle interface into turtle or tkinter if that's your preference as well. You can see how I've broken the points here, broken them down. They do, if you're choosing a different topic, you still have to meet the requirements of Dev 1. And you do need 2 classes. If you're doing a third party, you do need to set up the virtual environment, which really means setting up that requirements.txt. And it needs to be 100% PEP 8 compliant. Okay, so I will now, let's see, what else did I have here? Yeah, so I talked about the folder. I talked about that I'll email it out to you, and then I'll in talking about those topics. But let me actually show you my output. I went over like the bulk of this, so I'm not going to do a detailed view of it. But what I did do is I added more turtle interface, and I did it whenever I had asked for the user input, and I used that text input that we saw in the turtle array. So I'll show you how I implemented this. So for mine, um, because I ended up having to set up, I ended up anyway. The point is that I had to set up the screen before I call my validation, which allowed me to then have the text input. Now, what I did here is if I did it does validate. If I hit OK here because it's not valid, I give the message, but I attach a try here. And I can show you how I did that. It was fairly easy, but you do have to provide valid. And this is meeting the requirements of Dev 1 where you validate the inputs. And then if I do either anything H, S, or D, if I do anything outside of that, it just rolls that message again, but then attaches the try again, asking me for miles. Now here I found I could actually use another method in Turtle called num input. So this number you have to input has to be greater than 1 and less than 316. So if I enter 340, it'll actually pop up a message because it actually has a min max built in, which is kind of cool. So I ended up leaning into that validation to get that done. So if I put 200, cool, and then I'll just do a supercharger 20 just to have a couple in there. And so this repeats until I'm done entering. So this is just me entering my charging data. So once I'm done, then what happens is it actually automatic then in my code it just generates the what I've called the dashboard, which is really just pie charts dynamically rendered based on their proportion of, and I've broke this down by home charging and supercharging. I definitely could do a lot more here, there's no doubt about that, but then it automatically drops out. So, how did I do this? Just for a brief overview of this. So, setting up the screen that allowed me to pass that screen into anywhere I was going to prompt with text input. So, in my validation, and I'll just show you here because all the other ways that I used it, that's how I did it. So, I passed it in to the init function, and then I called it with that screen. Okay, I could have done self dot screen here, but that doesn't really make sense because it's not within, it's not instantiated within here. So then I passed it in. And so I changed that regular input that we've been using on the command line to actually be, well, of course, I actually ended up here creating a variable just to hold my text that the user sees. And the reason I did that was I set up an error. I set it as empty string. And then prompting the user with that text input. And if that input's not correct, then I set that error to try again. It rotates through and then presents that text input again. And this time, that text input based on this variable now has some error validation or validation code or message on it, really. So that's the way anytime I need to handle that input, I pass that in. So you can actually see it here in my session. I pass in two things. I pass in the battery cap and miles and the screen. And in that case, that's where it's getting both the location and the miles, because I consider that a session. Those are two things that I instantiate in my session uh, here. So again, passing in the screen, and then here I'm doing a check that says if the input, right, because first we're running this location to get it, because location has uh, it will drop you out by entering D here. And I use that same technique here where I did the error checking and then just concatenated the error onto the variable that I pushed out or presented on the text input, and then store that in a variable and did some checking against it. So this was fairly straightforward and allowed me to lean more into using Turtle or graphical interface because it's just more natural. As I've said before, nobody's going to use, most people are not going to use command line. Okay. So the thing I'd want to also tell you about this is definitely check out my week 8 already. I went over how I kind of approached this in more detail. Um, but the thing I would say is make sure if you have some code you're no longer using, get rid of it. It's like anytime you'd come in with a code review, you'd want your code to be clean. Of course, it needs to run. That's part of doing the required code. The code review, you're not required to have working code, but you're going to get more points if you do. And the only thing I didn't get done, and I am actually going to work on it, but I wanted to get this video done, was actually the last part where I wrote it to the JSON file. So I'll play with that. Actually, it should be fairly, I was thinking about it this morning. I can actually just put it here in my car because that would make the most sense. It's where I have my session stored, my charging session. So it would make the most sense to be up in there. Okay. Okay, so I think that's it for my coverage of my Dev 2. It's about 90% there. I only have a little bit remaining. Okay, so let me come back here and just say that because this goes so fast and we're coming into winter break, it is also going to be that I'll need to clear up and prep for the next semester. So the week after. So as the semester ends, right? And by the way, whatever is listed, let me just say this in case this comes up. Once everything is graded, the grade in Canvas is your grade for the course. Okay. That's why I like you knowing about the what if calculation. So you'll know, shouldn't be a surprise to you what you need to get on either late work or on the dev to achieve the grade that you want in this class. But where I started from here, rolling back, is the idea that I'm going to get rid of all your repos that are on our course organization. Now, doesn't mean they're going to be gone from your local environment. Of course, they still will be there. I hope that serves you well. And I'm really hoping there'll be some of you. I know I've talked to Jess about this, so he's interested in actually continuing this course and talking about this course, meaning the Udemy course, doing the one, getting through as many days as we can, and kind of just an update about like when you finish anything past 24, right, posting, oh, I did 25, right, it was fun, and da 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 da, or just kind of keeping track. Because part of the reason I love this course, by the way, if you didn't hear me say, the first time I've used this course, have used other Udemy courses, but I've really enjoyed this one. I give it A plus, 4 or 5 stars from me. I love the way she laid it out. I love the way she reinforced the ideas. I love her motivational stuff at the end. I thought it was really good because a lot of the stuff that I try to put in a Learn Together, she put in the course. So it allowed us to lean into that. So there's so many things about that. But I do have to get ready for next semester. Okay. So as of right now, I have Python on the schedule. I have JavaScript on the schedule. Those run 18 weeks online, very much like this, but in a little longer mode. They still have code reviews. And I say all this to you because, maybe consider taking my JavaScript class if you haven't. And if you know other people that are interested in code and you felt like this course was set up to benefit you and that you gained a lot from doing it and you'd be willing to tell other people, I always appreciate that. That is one of the word of mouth is probably one of the ways most students. Well, I don't know if they find me that way. They find it through looking at the course schedule, and they're generally looking for some programming class. Either they're in the web development program or in the. Here's the two students. I generally get three. I have, of course, web development students. I have some CSI students, and I have some security students, some cybersecurity, because they know Python is widely used in those areas. Where was I going with this? I don't know. Anyway, hope you found this information helpful. It will be sent out in an email. And again, thank you so much for taking this course. I look forward to this kind of being the beginning of conversation with us over Discord as well. If you haven't been there the whole semester, it's never too late to arrive. And it is just a good way to stay connected with people that are taking these kinds of classes. Have a great one. Have a great winter break. And even though I will see all of you before the end, have a good one.